Welcome to The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Jonathan, aka 3 Piece Combo, and today we're going to take a look at last night's game from 3 different lenses. We're going to take a look at it from the view of a pessimist. We're going to see kind of what the Heat did wrong, maybe kind of more of Royals' outlook. He kind of takes a look at the game a little bit more from a pessimist outlook. We're going to look at the game from an optimistic standpoint. We're going to see what good things we had going on in the game. And then we're going to take a look at some of the ugly things that happened in the game, whether that's really bad defense like we played against the Knicks or ugly like maybe a Struss dunk that we had a really nice Max Strus dunk. So we'll talk a little about that later. But we're going to start off with some of the good. Starting off with some of the really good aspects of this game, there was quite a few things that we can be happy for. Duncan came out, he came out shooting. We had a really good showing from our young guys overall. Sometimes you don't want to think of Bam as a young guy, but he still technically is only 23. So Bam, Duncan, Nunn came out pretty strong, even though he wasn't the most efficient shooting night, still put up about 16 points without Tyler Hero obviously getting to play. Strus got the call, and he delivered as well. Before we break down some of those young guys, we want to talk about our leader, Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler came out, and he played like another solid game where he was leading the team, 10 of 11 from the free throw line, was hitting some jumpers. He hit a three-point shot where he didn't almost barely left the floor because he was so wide open, but he took a three-point shot and he made a three-point shot as well and ended up with a triple-double, 27 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and that's what you want from our leader of our team. We couldn't ask for somebody better to lead this team right now. Obviously, the second time that we've seen Jimmy just start taking the lead and closing out these games, but it was really nice to see him be the leader. Second thing that we really want to take a look at from yesterday's game, Max Strus. He was on that juice. He is loose. Max Strus had a phenomenal game. Obviously, Tyler Hero getting the scratch 17 minutes before tip-off. Strus came in late, and he filled that hole, and he played extremely well. 5 of 8 from deep, 4 from the free throw line, and that insane dunk on John Wall. I mean, after tearing his ACL, coming back and still having that explosiveness, it was great. And it just speaks to the depth of the development of the Miami Heat team. You go back to guys like Marty McGruder, Tyler Johnson, even developing Hassan Whiteside into a max guy. Now we're develop Duncan Robinson to a $20 million a year guy. So the Heat just keep developing these guys, and it's phenomenal to keep seeing that we have another shooter in the back. We have another guy that's coming out that's really showing himself that he can stretch the floor. And with Duncan Robinson coming due for a payday, Strus might get some extra looks as well. Another one thing I want to commend the team for is the team defense overall. We held Houston to under 50% shooting for 3 quarters. They ended up with 50% in that fourth quarter, but that game was pretty much over for most of that anyways, except, close to the end. But we played a lot better team defensively. We did a little bit of full court trapping. We did a little bit of zone. We did a little bit of man-to-man, and everybody was on point. They were missing PJ Tucker and Oladipo for a lot of the second half, but for playing a team that has been playing as well as the Houston Rockets, it was good to see that we were able to defend them. We've strung together a couple of good defensive games. Haven't put it all together offensively yet, but we're starting to see what these teams can become as a unit defensively. So we took a look at a couple of good things. Like I said, a couple of other good aspects as well. But there was a couple of bad takeaways from this game as well. We we ended up with a 15-point lead that dwindled down to 3 closing the fourth quarter. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the bad. So taking a look at some of the bad parts of this game, don't want to be too much of a pessimist, but hey, if you're a pessimist, this segment's for you. First thing, slow start again. We've had a common theme where we've just gone through lulls offensively. We had a horrible first quarter. I think outside of Jimmy and Duncan, those were the 2 guys that scored, and maybe one person hit another 3 outside of that, but we can't keep having these offensive lulls. It's putting us in a hole, down 13 to a team, that was missing already Christian Wood. That was not something we wanted to do. And losing PJ Tucker, losing Victor Oladipo, I felt like that's something that helped us, allowed us to get back into this game because it was John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins. I mean, you're talking Kentucky teammates, 2, I think, number 1 overall. No, Boogie might have been a little bit lower, but Wall was for sure number 1 overall pick. But 2 guys that are studs in their primes, obviously both past their prime now. But those were the only 2 guys that Houston had left after that. I mean, who are you going to ask? Eric Gordon, who's like 60 years old. I mean, he's not the guy he was. So for us to get back in this game, it was good. But we also got to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt because we shouldn't have gone down 13 in the first half. We have a really hard road trip coming up, and if we do that against a good team like Utah or the Lakers or Golden State even with Steph Curry, in that one-man show over there, it might be a problem for us. So scoring, especially in that first quarter, we're going to have to pick that up. Second thing as well, in that first half, leading on to this, after Duncan hit the 3 of 3 to start the game, and he was 3 of 3 from deep, we went 1 of 19 to close out the second half, or close out the first half. And we can't have those offensive lulls, especially as a team that struggles to score so much. We need to make sure we're hitting some of those. Kelly had some open ones. Nunn had some open ones. And obviously, they hit a little bit later in the game. They ended up hitting up a couple of threes. But for that first half, going 1 of 19, that's not something we can do consistently. We need to make sure that when we're generating good looks, that we're hitting those shots, because we were generating some pretty decent looks, especially, like I said, Kelly had some good looks. Duncan had a couple of good looks that he missed. You can't blame the guy. He was the only one hitting threes in the first half, but he did miss a couple as well. So I feel like this team really just needs to lock in offensively, especially with the open three-point shots. We're starting to develop some better looks, but we can't go 1 for 19 against a good team, expect to make it deep in the playoff if that's something we want to do. Last thing I wanted to touch on as far as some of the bad things is 20 turnovers. You know, we can't have that happen again. Bam had 8 of them, and Bam looked, he was pretty solid tonight. Not the best stat line, almost a triple-double, fouled out, but 8 turnovers for Bam, that's not something that our star player should be doing, especially a guy that's, you know, the second most guy that handles the ball. So Bam needs to make sure that he keeps his, you know, his possessions clean. We've kind of let him, as Heat fans, we've let him give him a pass with the turnovers, just because we want him to be a passing center. But, you know, growing into this max contract, growing into a player that want to be an all-star, consistent all-star, hopefully an all-NBA player, he's going to have to be somebody that, you know, cuts down on those turnovers. Make sure he's putting the pass on the right spot. He does it a lot of time. Ended up with 8 assists, but he can't be the guy that, you know, we turnovers the ball eight times, and we can't be as a team. We can't turn over the ball 20 times, because a team that can get out and run, that they're going to cook us. You know, past prime John Wall and past prime Boogie Cousins, they're not going to cook us. But they had Oladipo until the third quarter, and once he was gone, it kind of, you know, really helped us out. So we got to make sure we keep those turnovers low. But other than that, not too many negative takeaways from the game. Obviously, a little bit of a shooting lull, something we just got to work on, just making sure we get that better flow. Hopefully, when Hero comes back, our scoring drought becomes a little bit better. We'll see how that works out with Goran as well. But we'll see how that works out moving forward. Now, let's get a little bit into the ugly, because we had a little bit of a horrible game against the Knicks as far as the ugly. We had a second half where Jimmy and Bam only scored, but this time we're going to have an ugly that might be a little bit more surprising. So the ugly. So there was actually 2 ugly plays in this game. First one, Max Strus dunking on top of John Wall's head in the third quarter. That was probably the time you got out of your seat when you're watching that game. That's the one time. Just a nasty dunk, just filthy, on top of John Wall's head, had him trailing, getting the pass from Jimmy Butler and just putting the gas on, change of speed right to the rim and just dunked on his head. Second ugly thing, Bam Adebayo's dunk on Boogie Cousins, and that kind of went a little bit underrated. It was under the radar. You could hear the announcers kind of almost wanting to say anything, but they didn't have to say anything about it. But Chris Webber was there. You know, he was just, he ended up on a poster, because Boogie did end up on a poster. Jimmy had a nice drive, dunked it off across the paint to Bam, and Bam just ended up dunking it right on Boogie Cousins. And that was a nasty play, very ugly play from Bam Adebayo. So thanks for watching the good, the bad, and the ugly, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We'll see you again after next game, and I hope you guys have a great day.